Greg Cazillo, Cazillo.com. I've seen a lot of photos lately, guys, that have had focus problems. I don't know if it's just ones that I've been running into or ones that people have been sending me, but I think we need to talk about that. So let's talk about the problems that people, or the habits of people, the bad habits that you'll use, as well as the correct way to use the autofocus system in your camera. Now, unfortunately, I will be referencing this to my Nikon cameras a lot, but Canon users, feel free to let me know what those modes are actually called, or Sony, or whatever camera you use in those other models. So, what is the problem? The number one problem is, I would say, is either using the wrong focus mode, okay, or you're focusing and then recomposing at a very wide aperture. When you are, the best focus mode to use, and the one that I use probably 98% of the time, is the single point. That's what I want, is that single point, because I can focus right on an eye, where I can focus right on something that's really minute that I know it's going to pick up. And by the way, focus needs contrasting colors, or a line, or something that's going to contrast between, say, a dark and a light color, or something like that. It can't focus on a solid color. So keep that in mind. You can't just focus on a blank wall, or a white wall, or a blue wall. You know, it needs solid color. It needs to have contrast in order to work. So using that single point is the best way to go. I think that a lot of people use that wide area. It might choose the wrong person. It also doesn't use the 1/3, 2/3 rule of focus. That 1/3, 2/3 rule means that 1/3 of my focus is in front of the point, and 2/3 of my focus is behind that point. So in other words, I'll have maybe a foot in front of me that's focused, and maybe 2 feet behind me that's focused. Now obviously that's going to change per lens, per all that stuff, but that's what that 1/3, 2/3 rule is. So next, let's get into the other focus modes, the right ways to use it, and why you shouldn't be focusing and then recomposing, and how that works. So focus and recompose, not a good idea. Now I know that I'm spoiled with my D3, D3S, and it has 52 points, and it makes it really easy, but you want to try to avoid focusing and recomposing whenever possible. What that means is you would always be using, say, the center focus point, and then you put it on your subject, and then you turn the camera to recompose and then shoot the picture. The problem with that is that the plane of focus is parallel to the camera. And as you change, this hand's the camera, this hand is the plane of focus, okay? As you turn the camera, that plane of focus is going to move. So say I'm shooting a photo of the camera of you right there, okay? I would focus and then I'd recompose. That means that plane of focus moved. So instead of, say, this post being in focus and that post being in focus, that plane, when we turn the camera, then I would have this point in focus here, and then this point back here be in focus. That's bad, okay? That means that everything is changing. Focus is the number one thing that we can really control in our camera easily, but people just forget about it. Now, using that dynamic area focus might be good for sports or some things, but I've never had good luck with it, and I'd much rather take the little pad, the little joystick, little D-pad, I don't know what they call it, on the back of my camera, and move it around. Or if you're on a Canon system, you can use your dial to move your focus points around. Find that right one, wherever it is, wherever you're composing. So in this shot here, you put it right on your face, right on the forehead, or if it's a tighter shot, a tighter headshot, you put it right on the eye. That's the best spot to do it, and pay attention right away. You move that spot over to the side. Even more importantly, when you're shooting vertical, there's no reason why when you turn that camera vertically, that you can't move that focus point to the top when you're doing a headshot. Say it was just tight like this, leave a little bit of room above, a little bit of room below the head. Okay, that focus point is going to fall right into the face. That's perfect. There's really no reason to be focusing down here in the chest or something. You know, just move that point up to the top and use it. It's definitely the better way to go. So next thing, let's talk about the other modes, the continuous, the single, when I use those. Right back. So most of the time, I'm on a single point of focus. Now that single point, well, there's actually three modes. You have manual, you have single, and you have continuous. I think Canon calls it servo in the continuous one. Sorry guys, I don't know the Canon cameras very well, but somebody please let me know what those are called. Comment on YouTube or comment on the blog so that I know what those are. Anyway, you want that single point of focus. That means it's locked, and as long as once it's locked, you hold that button down, it's not going to change even if you move around, okay? So the subject could walk away and walk out of focus, and that could be bad. Now, obviously that's good for someone that's not moving, or if you're not moving. But any kind of sports, any kind of kids that are moving, subjects that are moving, you really want to be using that continuous focus. That means until you press that shutter down, it's going to be continually following or tracking something that's moving in or out of the frame, either closer or farther away. Problem with that is that sometimes they could be moving across the screen. And sometimes that's where that dynamic area focus or the 3D tracking in the higher end Nikons can really, really help. So keep that in mind. So there's another mode that I forgot to talk about. There's that dynamic area AF, which is the camera picking everything for you and it just searching for the right point to use in the entire frame. Then there's the single point, which is the manual way to do it, which again, in my opinion, is the best way, but it's what works for me. There's another one that's in between that I believe is on all Nikon cameras, and I'm trying to remember what the name of it is. I'll put it up as a subtitle here. Anyway, what that does is you are still choosing the point, but it allows you the camera to do a little bit of work for you. So it's kind of a hybrid. So what at least in my experience when I've used it in the past, it might jump to what it thinks is a better spot within, say, the 3 points around it. Now that does work really, really well for the 52 points that I have on my camera, and so maybe that'll only work for, say, the D300 and say the D700 and up cameras. I'm not sure about the D90 or the D7000 if they have those or not. I'll take a look at that and I'll put that in the blog post. So that's just, you know, it just depends on what you're doing as to which one is best, but it is very, very rare that I will use the dynamic area one, because it just never seems to be right, and it just could be my shooting style that it's not right for. But if you're shooting a portrait, that's the last thing that you want to be using. If you're shooting a group of people, once again, it's the last thing you want to be using. Say you had a group of 3, 4, 5 people, 10 people, whatever it is, and they're stacked up 2 deep or 3 deep, okay? You want to put your focus in the middle of that so that we can use that focus zone thing that I was telling you about, where you have 1/3 of your focus in front and then 2/3 of your focus behind. So you focus, so say they're 3 feet deep. You want to focus 1 foot in so that a foot of your focus is in front and 2 feet of your focus is behind, or whatever it is. It's actually not in feet. I'm just using it as an example. Because again, that changes with lenses, it changes with your aperture, changes with all that stuff. Even the distance to the camera, that's going to change as you get closer, you have a shallower depth of field. So point is make sure you're paying attention to your focus, using it to your advantage whenever possible. Just like you use your aperture to your advantage. You want to blur stuff. You want to get stuff out of focus sometimes in certain images. Why wouldn't you be using your focus to do the same thing? But make sure those images you're putting up are crisp and sharp. If it's not a crisp image, it's trash. You shouldn't be putting out, especially if you're trying to be professional, doing professional work, getting paid. That's not something you should be doing, is selling or putting up, showing any kind of out of focus images. There's just no reason for it, because you should be able to use your equipment properly. Last thing I'm going to talk about, I just remembered, on focus between the continuous and single. When you're on a continuous mode, the default is on the camera. Default meaning how it's set originally is release priority. That means that when you push the shutter button halfway down, the camera's going to fire whether it's focused or locked on something or not. All right, that's the continuous. On the single, it has the focus priority, meaning that it's not going to shoot until it has a focus lock. but it's up to you as the user looking in the viewfinder to make sure that it's locked on the right thing. So keep that in mind. Shoot some photos. Let me know what problems you've had. What issues have you had with your focus? I'd love to hear those questions, be able to answer those. I'm sure I can find some kind of solution. And if you are having problems with focus in your camera, send it in and get it worked on. If it's not locking or there's something wrong, send it in Nikon or Canon or Sony or whoever it is. Get it worked on, get it fixed properly. All right? Greg Casillo, Casillo.com.